Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to All for United. It's been a while from me. I hope you're all well. Tonight we've got a good, really exciting news show that we've been talking about the last sort of week or so. Everyone's very excited about this, and it's more of an educational one. And you'll see what I mean as the night goes on. But I've got some wonderful guests. Just make sure, for those of you watching, for new people, whoever, like, subscribe, and share.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Hello, everyone. I told you I had some fabulous guests. We were actually waiting for one more. Stu, not always fabulous punctuality, but here we are. There's always something new. Good to see you all, guys. Jonathan, wonderful to have you on the show, mate. I know you do some wonderful stuff with the women's channel. Thank you. Natalie, yourself too. It's been a while since I've seen you. Also does some great stuff with the women's channel too. Connor, how you doing, my man? I hope you're well. So anyway, bridging the gap is what it's called, and essentially, I'm one of these people that need to know more about my club. We're not just a club of men's football; we are a club of lots and lots of things, and that obviously encapsulates women's football too. And this, like I said, in the backstage in the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about it. We're just trying to understand a little bit more, and that's not naivety necessarily. That's just because it's a very new thing. The women's team was only introduced a season ago, and lots has gone on, and they're very much about bridging the gap, and as I say, and trying to get lots of people to enjoy that show. So, Jonathan, well, actually, I'm going to pass over to Connor first. He had a question ready to go. So go on, bro.
Always come prepared. So I think the best place to start, Jonathan, I'll go to you first for this one, and Natalie, you can come in afterwards. Most people would say, as specifically Manchester United supporters, LSV, it's not Old Trafford. It's not the same. All that kind of stuff that you get with this kind of the stigma that's around it. What is your response to that? And what would you say if you were to sell it? If this was a product, what would you say is the best thing about women's football, but also in particular about LSV and United's women's team as well?
Okay, so start off with just a stadium first. LSV is our home the same way as Old Trafford's our home. For me personally, I feel more of a time there at LSV because I go to more women's matches than I do men's matches. So it's still home. It's a 12,000 seater capacity. On average, we get about 2,500 fans that go there, and the atmosphere that we create in our smaller crowd is still as entertaining as it would be at Old Trafford. There's just less people there, so we all scream our lungs out, and especially Natalie, and everyone who meets Natalie usually sees her before they see her, and so the atmosphere at the ground is still brilliant. We can get it better, of course. We'd like to be able to get the full 12,000 in attendance, which would be my dream. That's kind of what I'm aiming for, to see the stadium full up. But for me, if in regards to just getting people into the grounds, just give it a go once. We understand that the public transport's a little bit iffy getting from Manchester to Leigh. But, if you do drive or you can take public transport, just get yourself there. The tickets are dirt cheap. It's like £6 or £7, £39 for a season ticket. Once you're there, it's free parking. You got Morrison's there, you got hotels there, you got pubs there, you got anything that you need there. Just get yourself there because it's just an amazing atmosphere. It's took over my life. I've got to stop talking because I can just talk for an hour on this. So I'll carry on talking a bit. But Nat, you go on next.
Yeah, it's not Old Trafford, of course. It's not. I love Old Trafford. Season ticket holder for ages. Going Old Trafford, men's team, home, away, Europe, traveling Europe. Some of the best times of my life, really, watching United in Europe. Even though the only thing in Europe that I did see us win was in Stockholm. But I wasn't around '99. But I have seen us, in good games, being winning. But that's what it is with the women's. It's the same kind of you're following something, you're growing something, you're behind it, you're seeing them develop, you're seeing it grow, you're seeing, you feel part of it. It's the community for me is so strong in women's football, not just Man United, but I think Man United community is so strong, but it's so strong. You feel with the players, you feel like what Jim says, when I'm shouting so loud, I feel like I'm kicking that ball for them. And you can feel that in Old Trafford. You can feel yourself sucking the ball in, but it's more, more relevant in LSV because, like John said, there's so little people watching that me shouting is making a difference, not just me personally, but me, the whole group shouting and get behind. And I mean, God, I remember a game at LSV, one of our first games at LSV in the Women's Super League against Arsenal, and it was electric. And it was electric because it's about 2,000 people there, about 100 odd Arsenal fans, and we were just, baying for it. And it's like, when you get Old Trafford when it's like that, and that's what it was like at LSV. And some of the girls called it a fortress. Unfortunately, we lost, but we got that feeling, and that's the feeling that they're trying to push now in women's football with, with the Man United fans, I think, at the front of that, as per usual. But I would just recommend it because people who say it's not the same, I went down there thinking it's not the same, and now I'm a hardcore women's football fan, and I was just one person who tried it out. Like you said, you feel closer to it. You feel like you're making that difference. Not saying that you don't make a difference at Old Trafford. We all know we do, Red Wall and all that. But definitely at women's football, you feel like you're making a difference.
Can I just jump in on that as well? Just regarding the chanting and the fans. Because the stadium's smaller, you know that you can shout something and they can hear you. They'll probably recognise your voice. If it's Natalie, for example, they'll recognise your voice. You got the family right behind you. So everyone, that's that community. We're part of it. You got the players' parents there. You got the players there. We're in the middle. We're all together. We're all cheering them. And the main thing here is we actually care about the players. That's why we get so passionate on Twitter when people start tagging them in things that they shouldn't be tagging them in, or the opposite when there's loads of good stuff on Twitter and we're all on it. That community, because it is smaller, everyone reads everything. Everyone cheers, and can't wait to get that.
It makes it more personable, doesn't it? And that's and listen, we can talk about Manchester United men's team and football, men's football as a whole, but it had to start from somewhere. And at the moment, the great thing about women's football is it has the foundations. Football is obviously a huge sport, and women's football now has that foundation where they could take all the best elements from men's football, grow and make it the best it can be. Now, for me personally, as I said, I am a little bit naive. I do want to know more about it. This is Manchester United, whether it's the men's or the women's team. There's 1.1 billion fans. Not everybody is going to enjoy the men's football. Not everyone's going to enjoy the women's football. But ultimately, if you've got more and more things coming out with the Manchester United brand, then that's something that you can all get involved and enjoy, yeah? You hit the nail on the head, Jonathan, earlier. I'm really pleased that there's free parking, so I'll be going up a lot more. And just to mention as well, obviously, Karen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Started watching John and Nat last autumn, learning more about the team, and have now bought my first season ticket for the women's team, which is really, really great. And this is testament to you two and the great stuff that you bring out. So thank you very much.
Same story for me as well.
Well, can I just jump on that? So, Karen's a perfect example. So, Karen didn't know any of us, but she spoke to us on Twitter. And I'll tell you the story the same way as I spoke to Natalie 2 years ago. But because you engage with people on Twitter, all of a sudden, Karen felt comfortable to come from where she lives, which is miles away from LSV, come up, meet me, Natalie, Ben, Craney, a couple of others. She came up just because she's met us on YouTube or Twitter. She came up and then she was there to see Casey Stoney's last match a few months ago. And this is the community that we have. It's this isn't just women's football now. This is Twitter and social media. But this is what we want. We want people to get to read what we put, to see what we say, and then come up and then just come and join us in the stadium. Honestly, it's the best thing that's happened to me for years. I can't even think of anything better than Man United. But obviously, what we've experienced at the moment is absolutely brilliant.
That's really wonderful to hear. I'm really pleased about that, Jonathan. Thank you for sharing that. Well, obviously we've got a few more questions. One that sort of came to me earlier when Natalie was talking about obviously the atmosphere and stuff, and I mentioned it being very sort of personal and and that's quite a nice thing to have. But how do we? Obviously, these things take time. It's not going to happen overnight. And generally speaking, we're like most things, it's like a snowball, isn't it? Eventually, it picks up pace, and people do get more interested. But how do we do that? How there's a little bit of a concern with the women's facilities and that sort of thing. But at some point, obviously, the Glazers are going to have to sort of pull the finger out and really invest in that sort of thing in order for it to go anywhere. But Jonathan, how do we do that? Where's the starting board for that sort of thing?
There needs to be more money in women's football. There needs to be clear direction above the manager. The actual owners need to actually know how to run a women's team, which means they need to employ a role that they probably haven't got yet, and they need some experience to do that role. They just need to understand, and they need to listen and take note of other teams out there, not just in England, but away from England, and just look into the detail, because obviously when Casey left, it's through massive holes within the women's team. So first things first, I think there needs to be that structure there above the manager where they know how to run a women's team. Then they obviously need to invest. So I appreciate that we're still a new team. We've only been around 3 seasons, so I understand that we haven't kind of got the bank balance that maybe Chelsea and Arsenal and Man City have got in regards to the women's team. So I understand all that. So I can understand why transfers, for example, we wouldn't have the kind of transfer budget that they would have. However, when it comes to facilities and accommodation, these are human beings. So all of a sudden they go from players to human beings in my eyes. And that's where Man United should splash the cash, and they should look after our players, because after all, it is Man United.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good points there. Stuart, good to see you, buddy. Better late than never, as I say. Lovely to see you, buddy.
Yeah, sorry I'm late and a bit dishevelled, but I've just been having a kickabout. So,
you're playing professional football again, are you?
Well, it is. I thought I'd come out of retirement just to show the youngsters how it's done properly.
Of course. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Mate.
Thank you.
Just one last question for you, Nat, actually, before I move back to Connor again. Obviously, Casey Stoney left in the summer. She was only there for 1 year. Excuse my naivety. 2 years, okay. Trying to learn these things tonight. So she was there for
3 years. 3 years.
3, yeah.
3 years, okay.
And then this.
Yeah.
Okay, we got there in the end.
I don't even know.
She was there for 3 years. Obviously, probably came as a bit of surprise, of a surprise in the summer. Hugely liked by a lot of the players at the club and the club. So what do you think happened there, and why do you think that she ended up leaving?
Yeah, I mean, it shows that we've done on the women's channel, shows that I did on this channel as soon as she left. And I think a lot of it's been reported, a lot of it's been over-reported. We've seen Athletic bring out articles sort of bringing up the past, I'd say, in their articles. But we're seeing now as well, I've seen it in terms of everything, in terms of positivity and negativity. Man United, it gets the clicks. Whatever story, women's, men's, academy, they put a story out about Man United, it gets the clicks. But the thing is, though, with the Athletic article, no matter what we thought about it, what people think, when they put it out, I think it's fair play that they did it, because everything that, as far as I'm aware, in it was right. There was talk that they didn't have proper house. Well, they had housing, but wasn't in the best areas. And the girls then have said they wanted to move, and the club they had to come to some agreement with that. Obviously, there was talk about when they were training at Leigh, there was frozen pitches. They went to the Cliff for a bit. They went to Carrington. And now there's still some talk about the Carrington work not being done as we would like. I think, though, what we need to look at, got the new manager in. I'm hoping that he's fully backed, because for me, I think the squad is nearly there. I've seen Andrew say a comment saying we're just off Champions League. I think that would have brought in a lot more revenue for the club. It would have been better. I'm liking what I'm seeing with the club doing. I'm seeing that they're trying to sort of make the women's game sustainable. Like you're seeing sort of Chelsea, City, they're just throwing money into it. It's great for the women's game as a whole, because you're seeing world-class players, but you don't just, what if then the Sheikh leaves City? Then where does that leave the women's team, And I do like the way that United are doing it. You want it to be self-sufficient. Yeah, you might not get the best players at the start. They want a lot of people to come in and watch it. They want, to be able to the tickets to do it like that, But I think it's going to take time. I think things like facilities are like basic level. So you should have basic level, top class facilities because it's Man United. But I think it's more a case of not them not wanting to give it, but Carrington not big enough, so they're having to put a lot of money into it. I heard Gary Neville saying potentially it's not even good enough for the men's team. So if it's not even good enough for the men's, is it going to be good enough for the women's? And I think that's where it has been. There's a lot of teams. There's even the women's, under 21s and things like that, and there's talk that they're still training at the league. But eventually, I mean, the way that United was saying, they want all teams to be training, but obviously that's going to lead to more money. And like what you said at the start, the Glazers pulling their finger out and investing in things like training facilities as a whole for all teams of Man United. I don't think we're the worst team in the whole Women's Super League. I think there's a lot. Even the top teams, Arsenal, there was talk of them moving their women's teams out to sort of lesser facilities, if you say. Whereas during the pandemic, we upgraded ours, even though there was them hiccups with it. I think the pandemic has affected a lot of women's football. It's affected a lot of football, hasn't it? But we're by no means the best, but we're by no means the worst. And I just think, like you said, they've made a lot of promises now. So, go and act on them, go and put the money in to improving, like I said, the basic level. As long as we've got the basic level facilities, we might have the world-class players that you see in the World Cups and winning gold medals, okay, but, that'll come in time. I think it'll come with promoting youth, which we'd love to see in the men's team and the women's team. But, it was frustrating in the summer. I was really upset, but now I'm excited for what Mark's going to bring, hopefully, and obviously the future for the women's game.
He's got a great name, hasn't he? MARC.
Yeah.
Just throw that out there. But anyway, Connor, you've got a question next, buddy. I'll throw it over to you.
I've got a million questions. Honestly, I could ask Nat and Jonathan everything. But I'll start with, I think Natalie's kind of answered a lot of what this kind of question revolves around. But you can answer this in a United standpoint and kind of a WSL standpoint, regardless. Obviously, in the men's game, there's a coach for absolutely everything. You can have a throwing coach, free kick coach, absolutely everything. Is that kind of the same in women's football? Like, obviously, it all comes down to funding and things like that. Is it just the manager and a few coaches, or is there coaches for specialist coaches in different areas as well?
Not a chance. And I'm sure John would agree. And I'm sorry, but I just want to go on about coaches.
Yeah,
I think Man United need a few more coaches. Apparently, they've added a few now. I know Mark's bringing another assistant, so that'll be like 2 more coaches. But in terms of the coaches that I knew of, then we've got a strength and conditioning, goalkeeper, assistant, and that was when we started. And then we had Casey. And then I think we've added a video analyst, and I think we've then added more physios and maybe more strength and conditioning. But for example, when our under-21s team started, it was the first team coach and an assistant. That was it. And they went out and played football, and that was it. And I know it's under 23s, but that's more than some WSL teams had. Last year there was a lot of talk about Birmingham, and I don't mean to disrespect any, but there was just one coach, and it was the manager, and she was there just doing it all. So like I said, when people are like United, they're full of this, but they're not the worst, not the best. But then we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to a Birmingham, I suppose. We should be better. But definitely in the women's game as a whole, coaching and, bringing through coaches, there needs to be a lot more. I think it's just about the safety of players, really, because, if you've just got one manager there and then something happens, who's there to help? I
guess with the, sorry to interrupt, Nassi, I guess as I mentioned earlier, the women's league, the women's clubs, everything that's revolving around now, it's still in its primitive years. And as I said, they can't just, they still have to act like a business. This isn't me defending Man United, the Glazers, or anyone else, but they have to do things slowly and introduce things slowly. And it's good to see that it started where it was, and it's slowly building upon that. And hopefully we can see that in a few years' time there still is progression, there still is movement, and that's good to see.
I just want to say one point, and I'll let John come in on this. I remember when we first had a women's team and we played Charlton Athletic, and we went down there and the game was called off because they didn't have oxygen tanks. One girl had to wait. We had to wait for the ambulance to come, and then the referee said, "Right, let's restart." And they said, "No, we haven't got oxygen." They had used our oxygen, and then the game was called off because there was no oxygen there. So FA rules, you have to have oxygen. Basic kind of necessities. That club didn't have it. Now, if you look at that club now, they've gone fully professional. They've got loads of coaches. They've got things. So we are seeing a growth in women's football in terms of, we've gone from semi-pro leagues to two pro, sort of on the verge of 2 pro leagues. So women's football is growing a lot. And like you say, what Mark said, it's about a business. There's more money in the sky and all that kind of thing. And it's going to help, I think, grow it. Just about that money coming down as well, and then growing from the bottom up rather maybe than the top down. John.
Yeah, I just want to elaborate on the point that Nat said. So a lot of fans don't even realise that the women's team aren't even professional. So ours is, but like 3 years ago when we first started, we was playing in a league where there was all semi-professional. So they'd work and then finish work, get their own car, or get a family member to drive them somewhere and play a game, have some lunch on the way and whatever. So when people start talking a bit about like the women's team, this or whatever, it's such a different ball game. It really is when it comes to how the men's team are treated on a match day compared to how the women's team are treated on a match day, because they're also busy away from football as well. Obviously that's changed a little bit now. Natalie said I think there's now 6 teams in the second tier down in the championship that are fully professional, where there was only us 3 years ago. So that is great, and probably the whole league will probably be professional in the next 3 or 4 years, hopefully. But yeah, these are the things that a lot of fans who don't follow women's football just kind of take for granted. They don't even realise that they've got a full-time job, and very often the case we could all earn more money than them.
And that's fair play to them, isn't it? I mean, you see this in a lot of lower leagues as well, and really that is taken for granted. These people have got full-time jobs trying to do all of this as well, and quite an incredible thing. Can you hear me okay?
You can now.
Okay, yeah. I don't know what happened there, sorry. Right, just wanted to point out this great comment, Burgley Bear. Great to see you back, buddy, as well. Thanks for tuning in. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was MUFC men's team. It took decades to win the first league title. The women's team needs time, patience, and fan support. Really, really great comment. Thanks very much. Just want to say before we move on to Stu, very quickly, thanks for tuning in tonight. Obviously, make sure you like and subscribe. We've got the plans to potentially put this in at least once a month. That may become a little bit more. So we want to get everybody's opinions. And as I said, just, like, subscribe and drop in your comments. Stuart, you've got some questions and raring to go, my man. So go. Yeah,
I mean, as John knows, and probably Nat from my appearance on Ben and Matt's Saturday Night Live, I've got a whole host of questions that I've asked in the past. And I'd like to reiterate them really and try and delve into it a little bit more. But what I would say is this, just to start my side of this off, what flabbergasts me the most is that when the FA looked at setting up the WSL, why a structure wasn't put in place that would echo the men's side. So what I mean by that is that they've got a duty of care to footballers as a whole, but why wasn't an identical set of rules in terms of how you build your club put in place for women's football as well as men's? Now, that kind of astounds me. I don't know why, but it does. I shouldn't be astounded because I know the FA. And there was a history of sexism within the FA, certainly the board of directors. But look, you look at certain things. There are men that are looking for women to have equality in all walks of life. But yet at football, it just seems to be an absolute chasm of a difference between the men's game and the women's game. So that was my first observation about it. My second one is the finance. And forgive me if you've already gone through this, John, but it's really a question to you. And I posed this on Ben and Matt's Saturday Night Live when I made my appearance, and that is why with the commercial machine that Manchester United FC is, why can't we seem to find any alternative sponsorship, or why can't we do a deal with existing sponsors where they can fund a small amount of money to help equip the women's team better? Now, to me, that's basic mathematics. It's just simple. We are a commercial juggernaut, and my question is, John, is there a provision to have a separate sponsor, or does the women's team have to have TeamViewer as part of the overall club sponsorship? And if that is the case, that the women's team is then seen as a club as part of Manchester United, i.e. the TeamViewer deal, why can't we give them a proxy 1 million or 2 million a year to run the site out of the 250 million that we're taking from TeamViewer? And I'm just using TeamViewer as one example. I don't know whether you can help me with that, John, or is that a naive question? Or
No, and Nat, you can come in with a bit more detail if you know it. But first of all, 1 million. So if people are watching, 1 million from a women's team, let's just kind of put that into perspective. You just mentioned that 1 million there, that will be able to buy a whole squad and look after them as well. So 1 million there is a hell of a lot of money. It's that's good going. Let's put it that way. Regarding the sponsorship, I know some teams obviously do have separate sponsors. We don't. I don't know if it's. I'm sure that would have been negotiated in the deal when TeamViewer took over, that it would come into the men's team and the women's team. Why the Glazers have chose to keep it all under one sponsor, I'm not too sure. Would I like to see a second sponsor? Yeah, I think I would. Absolutely. Just because the finances are different. So we talk about Man United, we've got loads of money. We should be able to buy everyone. We can sell Phil Jones, release his wages and give it to the women's team. Yeah, that is a way of doing it. But you've then got to start looking at some of the lower teams who haven't got a men's equivalent. Is it fair on them? Now, I know me and Nat have joked in the past saying, well, we don't care about them. We're Man United. We want to be the top. We've got the money. Let's do it. But you've also got to think of like the women's football in general. If we start kind of throwing our weight around financially just because we're Man United, is that fair and is that justified? So if we have got two separate bank accounts, which we have, obviously the women's team obviously doesn't bring in that much money just yet, then why not kind of look at sponsorships that way and start growing the bank balance in different ways? Because obviously our attendances are good, not as good as the men's team, of course, but in the WSL, we do bring in a big crowd, and we've only been around for 3 years. We can generate money. We have got well-known players playing for us, especially last season, having 2 World Cup winners, so we can generate a lot of money, and maybe sponsorships would be a way forward to get more money to obviously help that. But Nat, do you want to jump in on that one as well?
Yeah, in terms of the FA, Stu, why do the FA do anything? I don't know. I don't know why they've allowed some things, because I think if you look at just generally of the safeguarding of players, I feel like they're not, and they should be doing a lot more. But the FA cancelled women's football, and this is the 100th year anniversary this year of them reinstating it. So I don't know why the FA do anything in terms of United, and why I agree with you. Apparently Barcelona, they have everything separate. They have their own commercial deals, their own director of football, their own director of first team, their own academy thing. So it can be done. And, that would be an avenue I would really like to go down. In terms of United, why I think they probably don't, is because they want all red, all equal. They want everyone the same. They want the men and the women wearing the same things. They want the men and the women on the same sponsorship. I can see it, but like you said, isn't it? Then if you want it to go down that road, give them a bit more money. Like take that 1 million from TeamViewer and give it to them. And I think, like what John says, I think they could, but as well, there's FFP in the women's game, not as stringent as the men's, and not as sort of we do know not a lot of women's team make profit. Apparently, Man United within the first years have made a bit of profit, so that'll be good for us. But I think it's based on how much attendance you get. So, for example, I know that wages is a soft sort of cap, but it's capped against 40% of how many people attend your games. So I think there's that encouragement that the FA are trying to do. So, yeah, Chelsea, City, they plough money in, but they've got a history that's longer than us. So they can say, well, if you go look back this many years, we've done this. And that's probably how they semi-get around it. I mean, we know City are semi-getting around it in the men's team other ways, and I'm sure Chelsea are getting around it, women, in other ways. But I think United want to do it the right way. They don't just want to sort of go, there's 10 million and run away with it. Like I said at the start, I sort of said they want it to be self-sufficient. They want it to stand on their own 2 feet. Whereas I think if you look at City, or if Roman Abramovich left, Chelsea's women's would probably go under, City's women would probably go under. I'm not sure about Arsenal, but, I think Man United want it to be self-sufficient. And I do want it to be self-sufficient. I think letting them do things separate in terms of sponsors would help that a lot more. But then I can understand sort of where they're coming from. It looks good if Bruno's standing next to your best women's player. So that's the only thing I think.
So if that's the case then, and United see it then as an all-in-one and all equal, which it clearly isn't all equal, how to... I mean, I again mentioned on Benny and Matt's programme about the potential disconnects between the women's side and the men's team. And I can see a disconnect at a senior management level. And why can't the women's team put a senior manager level in where you have the manager, this Mark Skinner chap, and then you have it just needs to be a general manager. It doesn't need to be a director of football, but just a general manager, not a finance guy, but a general manager who can then look and oversee. So, for example, if Lee Sports Village, the pitch needs a quick trim or whatever, he goes to the grounds team at Old Trafford and says, look, can you loan us 2 guys to go and sort the pitch out in the winter or whatever? Why is there such a disconnect then that this doesn't seem to be happening? What is it? I don't get it.
I think United, they probably, they probably thought a finance guy would be all right. I don't think they thought you're going to have 2,000, 3,000 fans rocking up every week. There's going to need this much level. There's this much things that you need to sort out. For me, it's 2 separate teams. It's like you said, if the men, like Connor said, the men have free kick coach, this coach, that coach. Why does the women not need it? It's still the same kind of energy that's needed to be put in it. Like you said, they need to sort out the pitch, they need to do this. For example, something that's always irked me, and I think it's always irked a lot of women's fans, even John, that's why he came to me and started asking me questions, because the social media side of you see the men tweeting 3 times a day about God knows what, whereas the only way you get information from the women's side, social media sometimes, is just by following the players, and you see, oh, actually, here's a winning picture, whereas with the men's, they're posting Bruno and all this, and I don't know, Stu, why it's not sort of been, the structure's not been done properly. I think it's sort of United thinking we'll do it quickly, and it's obviously not worked, and that's what's led to sort of Casey becoming frustrated and sort of saying, there's talk that she went to the finance guy like people have read, and was disillusioned, was upset, was thinking about leaving before she actually left. And I think John Murter was a good guy for the women's team, to be honest, because it sounds like he's sort of sorted a lot of problems. But then obviously now he's with the men, bringing through Varane, bringing through Sancho, and then that's sort of led to a bit of a disconnect with the women's team. And I think maybe bringing someone in, like on a John Murter kind of level, would be good. I'd be all for it. Having someone maybe to learn off him, shadow him. I mean, I said Siobhan Chamberlain, she's sort of doing a master's degree now about director of football shit. So yeah, she's not going to have a lot of experience, but she's the first player, one of the first players, most experienced players that joined us when we had. So it's like bringing Edwin van der Sar back as our director. That's what it'd be like. So for me, I don't see why not her. I don't know whether they'd do that. Maybe in the future they'd look at that. I'd hope they would. But Man United, I can't. Why do they do a lot of things? Only God knows, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm okay, Mark. I'm done now.
Oh, yeah.
Put a minute.
I'm just going to jump on what it was one of my questions anyway, but on the back of kind of we're talking about FFP earlier and that in the women's game. I'm just intrigued as a new fan to the women's game as a whole, not just United. transfers and contracts and things like that, I understand it's quite different to how the men's game work. I think it's relatively short contract. I mean, we saw Lauren James go in earlier a couple of weeks ago. It was only like 200,000 or whatever it was. Minuscule amount. I know the inflation's different in the men's game and there's a lot more money and whatever, but it still seems a very small amount. Obviously, John, you said there about 1 million could build a whole team and look after them. What kind of transfer budgets and what kind of transfers do you see in the women's side? And the same question really about contracts. Do you see 4 or 5 year deals like you do in the men's game, or is it kind of 18-month, 2-year deals that you see?
I'm going to do a quick plug here. So regarding contracts, if you come onto our show, not this Thursday, but the Thursday after, we've got an agent on our show. His name's Reece Lands. He's been on once before. He's managing director of Next Gen Sport. He's one of the biggest agencies in women's football, not just in England, but across Europe. So come and tune into WFC channel for that one. Regarding the transfers, I think it's because a lot of players move around who aren't actually under contract anymore. So they come to the end of the season, they come to the end of the contract, and players just move around who aren't under contract. So then obviously you're thinking, well, why did they get to that stage? Why do the contracts run down? But a lot of the contracts are just maybe 1 year with the option to extend a further year. We've got Kirsty Hansen, one of our, she's a right winger. She's come through the ranks with us and she's done really well. She got offered and signed a 3-year deal last year. And we was like, wow, a 3-year deal. This is amazing because we never get 3-year deals. So obviously not much money is in the game. So there's no money to actually spend on players. Lauren James is one of the best young talents in the country. And it's only 200 grand. Last year we saw a world record fee, Pernilla Harder come to Chelsea, 300 grand, maybe a little bit more with bonuses, 300 grand. And this is like, one of the world record fees. But you don't need to spend that money because the contract just run down. It's not right. But unfortunately, that's just the way we are. Regarding the players and the contracts, this is the worst thing for me because I'm all for stability. I always say this word for a number of things. But for me, stability is key. If a player is stable and they know that they've not going to move house and move to a different club or move to another country, I think that they'll play better. But in the women's game, unfortunately, they don't know from 1 year to the next where they're going to be. So for me, I'd love more players to be on 3-year contracts because at least then, when they've joined the club and you know who you're house sharing with, you know where you're living, you could actually have at least 2.5 seasons where you could just focus purely on your football. If you join someone in August, come January, you're already thinking, okay, so where am I going to be living? Where am I going to move to in 3 or 4 months' time? So for me, I think it is a massive shame that there is only 1-year deals, but I can kind of understand it. Nats, do you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, we're seeing an increase in contracts. I mean, I saw that Lauren got a 4-year deal at Chelsea, so that's something that's increased. When United are signing players, they're signing them on pretty much 3-year deals now. So all the sort of new ones have been on 3-year deals. I'm thinking, like what I said, when we first joined, we were in a part-time league, so that basically in a part-time league. We've got a guest on Sunday who's a couple of tiers below, so tier 4 of the women's football, and they said, well, I've heard rumours that apparently because it's not professional at all, it's just they can move within weeks. I don't know if some players prefer that because obviously players have jobs. I think it's something that's always been the case, and there's not a lot of money, like what John said. So if, for example, we're looking at maybe two professional leagues, we're seeing players that have jobs not wanting to take the money that they might get from being professional and dropping down and being semi-professional. So I suppose some aspects, the contracts might help the players, but I agree with John. I think I want to see more long-term contracts. I think we're seeing it a lot more. Like I said, we start giving out 3 years. You're seeing like Chelsea, they're talking about 4 or 5 years for some people. I think City give out 3 years, maybe 3 years plus 1, who knows. But then you are looking at sort of lower down and, rolling years and all that kind of thing. It's something that, I don't know. I don't know how it would do it. I mean, there's this Sky money coming in, and that will put, hopefully we'll see a lot more going in. Like I said, building it from the bottom up.
How much is that, Nat? How much is the Sky money?
I think it's 7 million a year.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I know it's not a lot, but like what Mark says, we've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
I know that if you win the WSL, I think you get. Maybe I'm wrong, John. I think it's 10 mil, or is it? I think if you win the WSL, it might be like something like 6 million, and then I think it's 6 million or something like that. And I think if you come second and third, you get a bit of money as well, and then you obviously go in the Champions League, get even more money. And I just want to say one point: if you look at, for example, the FA Cup, so obviously you want to build from the bottom. Some teams will get over £150 for winning, say, a third round of an FA Cup. And teams will say, that's not enough for us to even travel back. Never mind, get something to build upon. So we were talking about the FA.
You get that in step 7, Nat. You get that money in step 7 if you win a FA Cup match or you win a specific cup match. You get 150 quid in the county cup, wherever you play, whichever league you're in step 7, or which was step 7, is now step 6. And they pay their players, I don't know, 50 quid a match, maybe 100 if you're lucky. So so that's pretty poor then, isn't it? Is what I'm getting.
Yeah. Well, it's the FA, isn't it? I mean, there is a lot of push. I mean, I'm guessing that people are really interested in sort of the money side. Lewisham. They are the only club that play the men and the women the same, and they are big advocates of really highlighting the difference between the men's FA Cup and the women's FA Cup. Obviously, we're not going to get the same. If Man United win and say they're not going to be the same, yeah, it's great they're both at Wembley, but like you said, if a team who's got aspirations that wants to do something I know Huddersfield, they went to I can't even remember which team they went to, but they went to a team above them. And they didn't even have enough to sort of pay for the bus back on the money that they've won. And they ended up playing like West Ham. They didn't make anything from it. They played a big, team in the WSL. They're in the third tier. They're not making any money off it. And it's like you said, it's on the organisations as well, FA, UEFA, all that kind of thing. UEFA are starting to put more money into it. That's what I will say, because they are putting a lot of money into the Champions League. And then they're hoping that a lot of that will filter down and into, grassroots.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
But FA need to do more. That's what I'll say. Go on, John.
Yeah.
Regarding UEFA, they did a fantastic job. The amount of money that they put into the Champions League, it's still nothing compared to the men's. But as Natalie said, even if your country is represented in the Champions League, they're giving you money to go right the way down to grassroots, which is great for us. Obviously, it might come natural to everybody else, or they might think, they don't need it. But with women's football, what UEFA's done is fantastic, and you get 300 grand just to qualify for the Champions League, which is again a lot of money for those clubs. You had that as the transfer kitty. All of a sudden, you're getting a couple of good players there.
It's a real, well, not shame, but it's a real eye opener to see the disparity between the amount of money that goes into men's and women's, and some of the comments have said it. We've kind of said it. There needs to be a fair play to Lewisham. Lewisham, you said, fair play, because that's where you grow it by the scruff of the neck, and you try to make it fair and even, and that's the only way that it becomes sustainable. And that definitely needs to happen. I read something. I'm going to pass on to Stu shortly, but I read something the other week about Lauren James going to Chelsea. I actually did read that article. I've got a couple of women's writers now that write for All for United. They do some great work. So people, if you want to know a little bit more about transfer fees and the women's side of things, please come over and have a read. But I was reading the article, and then they said it was a player plus, what was it, 500,000, 50,000? I can't remember the exact number. And I was shocked. I just couldn't believe it. I was expecting to see a few more zeros, and it was, again, this is me being naive and having to learn about these sorts of things, but it's crazy just how much disparity there is.
Yeah. What I will say, Mark, though, that was a record. That's a record.
Yeah.
So it's 50. Raised to 100 plus a player, so God, she must be about 30, 40, 50. So it's about 200 if you want to be nice. 150 Okay, but that's a record.
I did see that actually, and that's absolutely crazy. Stuart, you got another question, buddy?
Yeah, more of a fan question, really. I'm just interested to know. We all know who the golden tickets are in men's football, but who's the golden ticket box office women's footballer, and who she play for? What are her attributes? How good is she? What does she offer the women's game, and why don't I know about her?
Well, did you know Preston Heath when they joined United last season?
Only because I'd seen a little bit on of the American side, and to be honest, if I'm being brutally honest, the only reason why American international football came to light was because of that Rapinoe girl.
Mm-hmm.
She shone a light on the American team, didn't she? For whatever reason, I can't quite remember. I think it was in the She Believes Cup or the Women's World Cup, and she became the star of, if that's what you want to call it, women's football. And then people then got to know about Tavian Heath and Kristen Press, and also that Alex Morgan woman, and I'm gonna say the redhead girl as well, and I can't remember. Lavelle.
Yeah, so she was last year as well. So as Preston Heath came over, Morgan went to Tottenham, Lavelle or went to City. So we had 5 World Cup winners come over to WSL last season, which was amazing. Only really happened because of COVID. But yeah, so obviously the American players are really well known. But Natalie, if you get any favourites across Europe?
I'd say the standout now player, if you had to say a player, Leaky Martins. She plays for Barcelona. She's part of the Holland, Dutch, Netherlands team. Unfortunately, they just got knocked out of the Olympics by America, to be fair. She missed the penalty, unfortunately for her. But I'd say she's the sort of one. I'm seeing her in adverts with Messi and Pogba and all that kind of thing. So she's like the how can I say? I'd say like the Messi, like the left, the right, the this, the flicks, the tricks. She's that kind of one. For the WSL, if we're going to say someone, I'd say, and listen, you know me, guys, I'm a hardcore United fan, but I just have to say Bunny Shaw from Man City. I'm sorry, John, she is world class. World class. I went to see her. She's Jamaican. I'm half Jamaican, so obviously I went to see her. They played Scotland. I'm half Scottish, so for me it was a perfect trip. And we had a few Scottish girls playing for Scotland. So me, Ben, and I think another guy called Shay went up to Scotland, watched them play, and this was back in 2019, just before the World Cup. She's different class. I know that John said about Pernille Harder, plays for Chelsea. Obviously, I would have said Lauren James, again, played for Chelsea. I think for our team, though, that's what matters. Leah Galton. Watch out for a left wing, up and down, whipping balls in. The way there's no stopping her. That's why I watch her. She's the kind of person who makes you stand up. You know she's going to do something. She's either going to take a shot or she's going to beat a player, cross it in the box. And then one video that's been going around, I don't know if you're Alessia Russo. She's the one who came in, probably was a bit under the radar when Preston Heath came in, but that was the quality signing. And, you know, for me, I think she's going to be the England forward of the future. She can stay fit, keep her fit. She can do anything. You know, there's a video going around Man United Twitter, but I tweeted it. You know, we've had our new players bigging her up, saying she was unplayable in training. Yeah, so definitely watch her.
I think Mark gave me a bit of abuse about that video. What he didn't know was I scored a pretty much an equally good goal tonight. Very, very similar postage stamp. As they used to say, John, right in the stanchion.
Yeah, but that was Leslie's goal, right in the stanchion. She can head, she can cross, she's quick. You know, she's got it all.
Can I just say one more player that we've got as well? A well-known signing that came in our first transfer window, our first season of WSL, Jackie Bonin. So she was a World Cup runner-up, European finalist. A lot of people know Jackie, who doesn't necessarily know women's football. So she's from the Netherlands and she's fantastic player for us.
Just to quickly point out, the video that went around in our group chat today was Natalie sending a video of a fantastic goal by one of the training sessions, wasn't it? And it absolutely was a wonderful, wonderful goal. And I was taking the piss out of Stu because he's obviously a professional footballer and he wouldn't be able to do that himself. Anyway, Connor, you've got
absolutely no need for that.
Take them away.
Yeah, I've got so many, but because as a new fan, like I said, I've got so many questions. I'm just intrigued by all of these kind of things. I'll ask one more about women's football as a whole, then I do have a United-related one to end it from my side. So, as a whole, and this has been addressed a couple of times in the comments as well, which is why I'm kind of bringing it up now. Academy football, obviously, I know it's a relatively new, especially from a United point, obviously a new team anyway. Women's football as a whole, especially in the WSL, do we see academy football? Do we see players promoted from? Do they have like a 23s team and under 18s, like even lower than that, and get promoted up? Or is that something we see a lot of?
I don't know if you want me to go, John, or you want to.
You started off, but then
Right. I love the academy. I love the academy. It's everything that I adore about football in general, but especially our women's academy, because for me, I think this is another place where the FA are getting it wrong. It starts, I don't think you can sign, like for a boy, you can sign up at 5 or whatever. With the women, it doesn't happen. I think the RTCs, which is regional talent centres, every WSL club has one. I think every club has one on RTC, but it starts at under 12s. So United, I think they do have young girls coming in 5 and 6, but pretend if you live, I think Leeds, theirs starts at 12 because that's what the FA tell every club to have. So obviously, if you're a 7-year-old girl in Yorkshire, I don't know if there's that much, and you're a real talent. I don't know what there is. I don't think there is anything. I don't, there will be because there's Yorkshire teams in the WSL that big Yorkshire teams. But for example, that's just an example. And then it goes under 12, under 13, and it goes up the same as the men. Then you get under 16s, and then it goes from under 16. This is where I think that the FA got it wrong. And it goes under 21s. And there's a big, massive gap. If you just go from 16 to 21s and then first team, you're setting them up for failure, in my opinion. I'm hearing rumours that there's going to be under 18. The FA are going to now, in their wisdom, set up an under 16s, under 18s team, and then the 21s, which is be a lot better. But in terms of our 21s, Man United women, we have the best. Last season they were pretty much unbeaten. They didn't complete the season, but there's some wicked talents there, as you would expect coming from Man United. You'd expect the top tier, the best academy. We have the best academy, in my opinion. I think Aston Villa are up there as level, but for me, Man United academy surpasses all. And people might say that's biased. It probably is a bit, but just from what I know, and they've got their own physios, their own strength and conditioning, their own goalkeeper coach, their own first. So, when we were talking about the level of coaching, not a lot of academy teams even have that. So United, in a way, you've got to give them credit because they're putting it down for that under 21 team. I want to big up Charlotte Healy. She's the manager there. The way she developed. I love the 21s. That's all I can say for the women. I love them, and there's good talent, and if you can, if you're around and if you ever hear a game, if you ever hear of it in your town, I'm hearing that they're playing Hull ladies soon. So that's but that's going to be this is where then people will get confused because Hull are semi-professional. So they're going to play our 21s. And it'll be good for our 21s. But obviously I'm expecting United 21s to beat Hull, but then that's not where people should get it confused probably. It's because United 21s are full-time and training all the time and with the best facility, with some of the best facilities. But, in terms of academy, United are doing it right. That's what I will say. From what I see on the outside, obviously, I don't know everything, but they're getting the academy football right.
And just one point, this might be worth mentioning, before 2018, our academy players would get to that certain level. They'd have to leave Man United because there was no senior team. They'd have to go to Man City or Liverpool. And they get passed around, thankfully,
Everton.
when we Everton, yeah. And thankfully, when we reformed in 2018, Kaiser Stoney looked at those youngsters and got quite a few back. And now we love them to bits, don't we? And as for getting promoted into the senior team, there is a pathway there. Not many of them are actually getting many first games just yet, but many starting. But we've got Carrie Jones, who only signed with us last year. Welsh player, we're thinking that she might get a bit of game time this year. If not, she'll go out on loan and come back. There are players there who've already come and gone to bigger and better and getting some game time elsewhere. So there is progression there, but I think because our standards are so high and we want that Champions League football, it is always a risk to play the youngsters just yet. But I do think this season we will see it because we've had so many players leave, and I still think there's a couple of gaps for some devs to get into.
Fantastic question, Connor. Thanks very much, mate. I did see that floating about as well. And great answers there, guys. Really, really great stuff. Thank you very much. Connor, I believe you've got one more, buddy, and then I'm going to wrap up shortly after.
Yeah, so this is me speaking as a United fan. So for Natalie and Jonathan, are Manchester United going to become the first team in history to win WSL and the Premier League in the same season?
All right, so I got first on this one, Nat. So obviously me and Nat follow the men's team as well. Just very quickly then, because obviously this is a women's show. I love Ollie, and I've always backed on this whole show from day one. Whenever someone goes in on him, I always defend him. I think coming third and then second with the squad that he had is very commendable. And I think now, with these extra players, we can start putting a bit more pressure on Ollie because I do think he's kind of getting the squad now that can challenge. Whether or not he'll get it this season coming, maybe not. It might be 1 year too soon, but I definitely expect that if we continue on the men's side to keep on getting the signings that we've been getting, we should be getting that title in the next 2 or 3 years. Whether or not the women's side, let's look at that. I think if we made Champions League last season where we just missed out by 1 point, we could have potentially got some glamour name signings in, and that would have really pushed us forward. I think we have took a little step backwards this summer by not making Champions League. But can we actually win the WSL in 3 years? I think that's the massive question. I do think we can, because I think our starting 11 could compete with anyone on its day. I think what's going to let us down at the moment is our squad depth. I think our youngsters are getting better, so I think as our youngsters are coming through,
We know how you feel with that squad depth.
Yeah. I do think that maybe in 3 years' time that would potentially happen. Probably not before then. But Nat, what are your thoughts on that one?
If you'd asked me this, Connor, last season, I would have said the women will win it before the men, or maybe would have won it together. Because last season, let's not forget, we were both top at the same time.
Yeah.
Both fell away. It's just that the women fell away a bit more than the men, and then not Jackie, because I'm reading Jackie. Then Casey's left, and I do think Casey. I think that we do need to move on from her, and I know that people have said, they don't, and I don't like bringing it up, but I think she was that glue, and that was something even what's been said in the article. She was that Ferguson. She was, when Stu talks about people knowing about women's football, she knew it all, so she could go to John, Ed. She had those contacts like that. She could pick up the phone and speak to Ed, And I don't think, Mark's coming in. Hopefully he gets that same. He can command it the same way. I've got a show tomorrow where I'm speaking to a journalist, all about Mark, all about it. So listen, if you want to know, can we win it in 3 years? I suppose that's a question I'll put to him. Can Mark's going to go and win the WSL? Because that's what's expected. Man United is winning as expected. I do think the women's team will win a trophy soon. I think they have to. I think the last trophy, 2018-19 season. So, sort of like at that Ollie point now, obviously the guy's going to get time, but, you're looking at that squad going, come on then. We're at the point where we need to win again, whether it's a League Cup, FA Cup, who cares? A win's a win, a trophy's a trophy. So potentially you could see both teams coming away with some cups this season. I think it's more likely that the men will win the Premier League this season than the girls win the WSL, though.
Never say never. You made a really good point, actually, Natalie. A really nice point to do with United, the men's team, and the women's team being top of the together. And that really was a wonderful thing. The amount of sort of title grabbers from various media outlets to say, this could be the first season with these two teams. And that was wonderful. That really gave a lovely sort of togetherness, didn't it? And years ago, you would never see anything like that. But for whatever reason, regardless of the position that women's football is, men's football is, people wanted to do that. People wanted to use that as a selling point, and it really did work. I felt that there was a lot of conversation between both men's and women's supporters that really brought that together, and that was really great. I've got 2 more questions for you. The first one's a quick fire for you. Who is, Jonathan, I'll ask you first, your signing of the summer for the women's team so far?
Okay, so we made 5. I think this was probably made back in January, just wasn't like officially done because of whatever reason. I'm going to go for, well, we could go for a few. I don't know if I should say this one. I think
quick fire, John, quick fire.
I think the glamour signing is Vilda Borisa, but whether or not she'll be the main one, I don't know. She's a midfielder. She's going to be very good for us, I think. But that's the one.
Yeah, quick fire. Borisa is going to be the signing of the summer. I think all of them are really good. I think Hannah Blundell, from the one that we got from Chelsea. I think she's attacking fullback, and that's what we need. If anyone saw the women's team, saw Anna Battle won Bache won the player of the end. She's attacking fullback, so now we've got 2 attacking fullbacks, so it's going to be really good for the women's team. It's what the men's team has needed, you know. So, but I do think Borisa will be the signing.
Excellent stuff. I'm really pleased you said that. So one of my writers, Mercy, her name is, fantastic writer. She did an article as soon as Vilda Borisa had signed, and I'd read that a few weeks ago and learned a little bit more about her too. So I'm pleased you've both said that name, and that plugs my little point very well. Right, last question then, guys. Obviously, we've spoken about this a little bit. You know, the women's side were into sort of third at top at one point around the sort of same time as United. And then obviously it sort of slipped away a little bit and things didn't quite work out in the end. And you know, it's one of those unfortunate things. But what is it that the women's team need to do in order to make that progression? You know, as men's, on the men's channel and the amount of times we have the same thing, you know, progression. What do we need to see from Ollie next season? But what do the women's side need to see next season in order for you guys to be happy with that progression?
Okay, so ignore the board, ignore the structure, ignore like facilities. If you're just talking about the players and the manager, we do need less injuries this season because obviously I think, like I mentioned before, our starting 11 on the day is good enough, and I think we've got a better group of 15 players there, if not a bit more, who can compete with anyone. So I think first things first, we've got to make sure that we stay injury free. Secondly, I think we need to get Russo, Galton, and Hansen, our front 3, scoring more goals and being more clinical. They're our favourite players. They done well last season, but there was a lot of injuries as well. So I think our strikers need to score more. And one more point, let's make it on Skinner. I think let's just be adventurous. We've got better defenders now. We've got a better midfield now. So I just say, you guys just do what you're doing and then let the forwards play and have a bit of fun.
Fantastic.
You know what I'd say to that, don't you, Mark?
Go on.
You know, determination, intelligence. That's what I'd say.
Yeah.
The thing is, though, women's football, men's football, you know, the concept is exactly the same, isn't it? You've got to have that fire in your stomach to be able to want to carry your teammates forward. And what I would say about the front 3, John, is get hold of Coley. He's an ambassador for the club. Get hold of Coley. Get him down to Carrington and get him coaching. Can you imagine a one-on-one session with Coley? Probably one of the finest strikers with his back to goal in the 6-yard box that I've ever seen. He was unbelievable. He was, and his positional sense and that. So I digress, but I just, you know, why not? Why not?
I think that would help. I think definitely having, even if he's like a coach, isn't it? Like if he was at every game and at thinging and seeing Ugly Bear saying more media influences. But I think if Coley was there, you know, as part of the women's setup, I know that Leicester have Heskey there, and I just think that sort of helps create a unity between, you know, as a whole. You know, he's an ambassador, so why not go and ambassador for, you know, go and promote the women's team a lot more. That's what I'd like to see. It would be good. I know that they do comment on the women's team. You know, Ben Thornley's there a lot, Quinn and Fortune is down, Dennis Irwin, but it's always the one odd sporadic Whereas it would be nice to see them constantly, you know, every game. I know that Alan Keegan does all the stadium announcing now, so you know, definitely go down there, and it's the same, men and women's. But in terms of what would like to see, and you know, progression, all that kind of thing, clinicalness, like John says, I think that's our problem. We don't score enough goals. I don't think it's the strikers. I just think it's, I don't know, because we create a lot of chances, but we're just not putting it in the back of the net. And I think, you know, where it's striking, I don't know. I think it's about believing in yourself. I think when you watch women's football, I feel like the confidence, it means more, say in a women's game than a men's game. I think it does mean more. I think we're seeing even with Pogba and Ollie, you know, Ollie's bringing the best out because he believes in him and all that kind of thing. But I still think we did see good performances, say, you know, from players that don't. And I think that's a lot of it with the women's game. So hopefully they all get behind Skinner. Skinner gives them that belief, confidence to just go out there, play your best football, shoot it, strike it. You know, go for it. Attack, United way. And then we'll, you know, I don't know. I just think we need a bit more depth up top. So I would like to see, hopefully, him backed. When I say him, I mean Skinner back to just finish it off. And then I think, you know, we can go anywhere. The world's our oyster. And, you know, like I said, a cup game, a cup win or long run, whatever this season will bring a lot of positivity back to the women's team, and you know, hopefully a big fan base. I think fans being there as well is hinders everyone in football, so I definitely think fans behind them properly week in, week out will help as well.
Yeah, really great points. Thank you very much, guys. Another thing I just wanted to add actually is obviously we have had COVID. It has been a COVID-stricken 18 months, 2 years almost, I suppose, and you may find, hopefully, an influx of people that are desperate to get out and watch football, to actually go and watch the women's game. And and honestly, thanks for today, guys. Really, really appreciate it. And
one more question, Mark, if I may.
Go for it, Stu. Yes.
Yeah. How many posers are in the women's game?
Posers? What do you mean?
This is a joke.
This is a running joke on the men's team.
I'll let you explain, Stu.
I have a slight issue with the bulk of modern day footballers, with their attitude and the way they go about, you know, themselves, presenting themselves. I think they're just a bunch of posers. And obviously, in my day, you wouldn't put up with that. If you've got long hair, and I was playing against you, I'd be pulling it and, you know, all that kind of stuff. I'm just wondering, a lot of players, like your Jack Grealish, like the sunbeds, the suntans, they like to do their hair a certain way before they go on the pitch and that. And I just don't feel that that's right for the modern day game. It's not. You don't play FIFA, mate. So I was just wondering if there's any poses, you know, not pin up girls, because that's the wrong category. Yeah. But I think you know what I'm talking about.
I'd say there's none. I say every girl. I think because what we talked about in terms of contracts, in terms of, you know, the level of money that they're getting. So they're doing it because they love it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you wouldn't be playing part-time football, go in there, not even having enough money to find your way back if you didn't love the game. Yeah, the girls, they go out, they get their hair done, they get their makeup done. You know,
totally
obviously, you know,
totally different. Yeah.
Yeah, but in terms of poses, no, I think that's the difference that you'll find. That's probably why I love it so much, Stu, because I remember it was one game. It was Liverpool away, and I was in the Kop, and not the Kop, the other end, and we just lost. And it was the one when Jose got sacked, and all of them were attacking, and then the referee blew it, and they just all walked off. No one came up, and I just thought, I ain't got time. And I thought the girls wouldn't do me like that. They wouldn't lose to Liverpool. Fair enough, you'd lost, but and just not even appreciate that fans have travelled and done so much, and, you know, giving everything. Whereas, you know, I go down to Brighton. For me, that's a normal trip. Brighton away. I've done it plenty of time with the men, you know. But the girls, oh my God, you've travelled to Brighton like it's Timbuktu. No, it's just Brighton, mate. But that's what I think they appreciate, the support. They appreciate that you come to support them. And, you know, the more people that come, the more they love it, the more they've got time for the fans. And like you said, I don't think there's any posers. like the hair and makeup. Of course I do. Every girl does. I'm probably the one that doesn't. But listen, they love it. They do it for the passion, not the poser.
A fantastic answer, and I can assure you, you've won 3 fans over tonight, and especially Stu. Obviously with the old poser thing.
I can't believe he's got posers in this show. I cannot believe he's managed to worm that in somewhere.
Now listen,
you're bloody right.
Thank you everybody for tuning in tonight. It's been I like to use this term a lot, but an eye opener, and it really has. And I'd love to keep learning more. I want to hear updates. I want to hear how the progression's going. I want to be able to talk about all it and understand it a lot more. So honestly, guys, every single one of you, thank you very much for coming tonight. Natalie, Jonathan, brilliant stuff. And thanks everybody for comments and everything that's come in tonight as well. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this tomorrow, make sure you come in and like and subscribe. But listen, it's been a wonderful night. Stay tuned for this because we'll come back with more. We just don't know when that's going to be, but we will be back. So yeah, again, thank you everybody.